Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to today's webinar where we're looking at business ownership exploration, a panel interview. My name is John Ripple, and I am a Canton SCORE volunteer. This webinar is being sponsored and hosted by Canton SCORE, along with the Stark Community Foundation, the Hoover Foundation, Stark State College, and the Small Business Growth Network. For those that are not familiar with SCORE, SCORE is a nonprofit that has been around since 1964 and is a resource partner of the Small Business Administration. SCORE's mission is to help small businesses survive through mentoring and education. And there are actually over 230 chapters of SCORE across the United States with over 10,000 volunteers. And SCORE offers counseling that is free of charge and confidential to both nonprofit and for-profit businesses. So do reach out to your local SCORE chapter if you need help with any business challenges. So a little bit of housekeeping for today's webinar as we get started. If you have any questions during the webinar, please feel free to write your question in the Q&A tab at the bottom of the screen, and the panel will attempt to answer those questions during the presentation. Also, this webinar is being recorded, and you'll be provided with a link to the recording so you can review it at your own time at a later time. Terese McGroarty is a moderator for today's panel that explores three primary avenues to enter a business, which is starting from scratch, purchasing an existing business, or investing in a franchise. So with that, Terese, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Great, thanks, John. So good morning. Thank you so much for attending this webinar. We are excited to bring you information about business ownership exploration. As John mentioned, there are three different ways you can go into business: buying a business from scratch, or starting a business from scratch, buying an existing business, and buying a franchise. Today we have two panelists with us: Brian Adolph, who happens to have explored all three of those options. He is what I call a reformed banker, and he started a business from scratch. He has now bought a franchise, and he helps people buy businesses, existing businesses. And we also have Derek Watkins, and both of these gentlemen are from Canton, Ohio. And Derek Watkins owns a Junk Luggers, which is a franchise. Terese McGroarty, am what we call a franchise consultant. So I work with people to explore your options. Sometimes, starting a business from scratch is a good idea. Sometimes buying an existing business is a good idea, and sometimes buying a franchise is a good idea. It's really all about what's the best fit for you. One of the things that I wanted to share with you, just because we don't have the one gentleman with us that we had planned on, is that, one of the advantages of starting a business from scratch, I'm very sorry about my dog, is that you have the advantage of total control, that you get to make all the decisions. There's tons of room for your personal creativity. There are no predetermined rules. You get to make every single rule that there is. There's a large upside many times, depending on the investment that you might have to make, and you can build that business from your passion. I'll say some of the disadvantages is that you get to create all the systems, which sometimes is not much fun. Sometimes you're the guy that's creating all the content that's going out on social media. You're the person creating the website, creating all the content on your website, and all of those things. A very big disadvantage is that typically there are no, very limited, I should say, financial options. You cannot get an SBA loan when you are going into business for yourself, typically. And it's usually a slow ramp up. and there is a higher failure rate. Not to say that that's going to happen every time, but those are some of the disadvantages. So I'm going to start. I'm going to let Brian go first. Brian, tell us about you and how you got to where you are. Just give us a, 30,000 view look.
Okay. Yeah, so on that, I kind of I started my career in marketing, and I worked in marketing for .com companies. And as far as starting my own business, I kind of I got downsized a couple of times and got tired of that while I was living in Los Angeles, and kind of wanted a slower pace of life, and started a marketing company in Bakersfield, which is just kind of sharing. And I didn't have the kind of education as far as starting a business, and I kind of went into it, blind at that time. And yeah, I was kind of, I guess, flying by the seat of my pants as far as what do I do? And, and there's a lot to it, and you need to create everything yourself, and you need to play every position, and you need to, play every role, as far as you are the accountant, you're the attorney, you're the marketing department, you're the CFO, the CEO, and everything, in creating this vision for your company, which does have some liberations to it, but it also has the constraints as far as your own, capacity to do those things that you're unfamiliar with. I ended up moving back to Ohio after my father had a vending machine fall on him, and was unable to run the family vending business. So at that time, I took over the family vending business, and I ran that for 15 years before deciding that really vending was not for me, and wasn't really what I wanted to do long term as well. And I met my wife, and we kind of decided that wasn't the business that I wanted to be in, and I was much more enthralled by finance, and that's kind of how I ended up having an exit, selling that business, and getting into financial services and financial technologies. And I saw from vending and my interest in finance that financial technologies was of interest to me. So I started selling financial technologies, because that was kind of an interest in where I came from in marketing, and interest in finance, and the technology piece with the vending. And I thought that was a good fit. Um, Again, I was working for somebody else. And during that time with technologies and whatnot, the company that I was working for also was bought out by a larger company, and wanted to take my position and have somebody in Atlanta take it over, or have me move to Atlanta, which I wasn't going to do. But I was in the fortunate position. I was working with banks at the time, and so I was being recruited by the banks that I was working for. So that's really how I kind of fell into banking at the time. So I started working in the in banking directly at that moment. But I've always been an entrepreneur at heart, and always wanted to do my own thing, and drive my own business, and have my own, drive my own results. And working with small businesses and working with businesses is why I've always been involved in SCORE in some capacity, as well as as an advisor. And there are a lot of people retiring nowadays, and needing to, pass down their existing, businesses. And I saw that as an opportunity. And Transworld, as a franchise, was open in this territory, and I saw that as an opportunity to help people to realize from the entrepreneurship, and also to kind of help the legacy businesses that are in this community to kind of pass on the torch that they've built for themselves. So I've got an office here at the Football Hall of Fame. There's signs all around me that says, honor the, honor the past, and, build for the future. And that's really kind of what we try and do here as a business too. So is inspire the future, and honor the past. So that's what we try and do, as far as making sure that people that have legacy businesses, that their past is honored, and that we're inspiring, the future of those businesses. And that's really kind of, I guess, the 100-foot view of what has brought me into this position, and helping people to exit their current businesses, but also helping the new entrepreneurs to find a home in those businesses in order to carry them forward.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Mhm.
Yeah, Derek, tell us about you and your journey.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I liked hearing your story there, Brian. I love that, especially the transition for people selling their business. That's really important. I like that.
Mhm.
So hello, I'm Derek. owner of the Junk Liquors of Akron, Canton, Ohio. We are going to be turning 4 years old on May 2nd. So that's just a few days away. So we're very excited. My
Just to let you know when that is like during the pandemic open. Dirk opened his
Yeah,
business
yeah,
just
yeah.
at the
Yeah,
tail end of it,
it's
right?
right in there. It's just right at the tail end of it. Yeah. It
Yeah.
seems like it went by very quickly.
Yeah.
And that was kind of what I'm kind of one of those pandemic 2020 pandemic life shift people. The more people I talk to, the more I realize a lot of people had a realignment of values during that time period. My past is in pipeline work, where I did a little bit of everything. I did some field engineering, I did some project design, I did just a lot of logistics work. Good money, traveled a lot, a whole lot. Pandemic happened. My wife, she's also a speech therapist, contracts through the schools. And next thing I know, I'm looking around at my then 4 and 2-year-old daughters and my wife. And I'm like, oh my goodness, I have a family I've completely lost sight of. What's the point, right? What's the point of that? And then you start asking yourself the questions of what now? What else do I do? In the fields I was getting into, I was niching down pretty hard at the time. I'll say it's called pig runs, pipeline inspection gauge, where you take a tool, you run it through a pipeline, and it's pretty niche. It's unique, and I loved it. It was great work. So I was doing that, but how do you do that? Where do you transition to? And so I'm just talking with Sarah a lot. I'm like, I know exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to open a beer drive-through. USA, right? USA, let's go. And she's always been my voice of reason, and she's good at just like let's keep talking about this. She's like, what do you know about that? I'm like, well, nothing at all, right? And so the conversations keep happening, and she says, well, what about purchasing an existing one? And and I had no idea. Many people did, and I'm sure everybody on this call knows there's a whole wide world of businesses for sale out there. And I got hooked up with an advisor that didn't have my best interest at heart, right? And it turned into this terrible experience. So, kind of 1 year trying to purchase this one business wasn't a good fit, tried too hard to make it a good fit. Push came to shove, and I just backed off, right? And so I found myself at an odd point where I had invested already into the dream of business ownership and being my own boss, but didn't know where to go. And my banker, Nathan Sable with Huntington, said, have you thought about franchising? And I said, no, not at all. He said, let me connect you with Terese. And my experience with Terese and that particular business broker, I know there's not speaking to anybody else. I'm sure Brian's stand up, right? Was night and day, completely night and day. Terese sat us down. She asked what I like, what do I enjoy, what's kind of my vision, what my success looks like. And then she asked Sarah those same things, my wife. And that was like, oh yeah, you're right. She should know and should have this input. And we were looking at several businesses, and she calls me up and she says, I've got the perfect pick for you, the junk luggers. I was like, no, what is that? That's ridiculous. But what junk luggers brings and what Junk Luggers continues to bring is the brand. I've got the green behind me. They have just a rocking brand and a great corporate team. And I remember they sent a discovery video, Sarah and I laying in bed, looking at the discovery video, just a quick little commercial in our room. And it's like, when in doubt, lug it out. And Sarah's like, I love that, And so it's just this fun stuff. I'm like, okay, all right, I think I could see myself doing this. And at the time, I saw my logistics works coming into play, right? I can run the heck out of crews. I'm used to people. I'd run 50-man spreads over 20 miles easily, multi-million-dollar projects. And it was just, like, this is going to be easy for me. And that's great. And what Junk Luggers will bring is the marketing, the brand, a playbook, and just kind of help set you up for success. What I found, opening day starts off, they have a playbook, and I'm just going to follow this. Here's 2 weeks prior. Here's what you're doing. That was exactly what I did. I remember going to corporate training. It was me and 3 other locations at the time, a total of 4 of us. And each of them were like, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do this. And they have their own ideas for how they're going to run it. And I say, I'm going to follow the Junk Luggers playbook. that's I don't know what the heck I'm doing, right? I have zero experience in marketing. I'm there to hire people and just run their playbook. And right now, I'm the only one still around. Um, and I think there's a very good reason for that. And it's just you could have great ideas and a great vision, but then kind of do your own thing, right? And so I was like, I'm just gonna follow their playbook, and I've continued to do that. And what's been really nice about Junk Luckers is they have continued to improve. They're providing us with great vendors, great marketing plans, and we've just seen continuous success. And what's nice about a franchise is in the beginning, it's kind of chafes you. There's a lot of systems that are built for scale, high scale, that you're paying for, that I was paying for. And I was like, I don't know why I'm paying for this. This is kind of hitting the pocketbook pretty hard. But as I've kept those systems and we've changed vendors here and there, those systems have stayed in place. And now we're busier than we've ever been. And I just drove back from my parents' house today. My dad had surgery a few weeks ago. I spent, some time with him. I've got my office in my house. There's just all kinds of ways that a franchise has those systems developed. And every franchise, I believe, is super successful off of scale, and that's where we're at now. So it's been really nice having that support system. And I did find during the process with Terese and the way they did it was great. There are some franchise systems that were good on paper and sounded good, but you talk to them and you just don't click. And that's what I really liked that Terese said. I was like, here's talk to all these different people. So that's been my journey. That's been my journey. My brother has been working for me for years since the very beginning. I put a lot of effort into my employees. I got Damon. He's been with me from the very beginning. I got employees that have stayed with me over a year. As we hire people, they're staying, and I'm just keeping that investment, that relationship going. Lots of lessons along the way, and yeah, that's it. Lots of stress, lots of stress, but also lots of lessons. So yeah, that's it. That's my top down
I
view.
also love the Junk Lugger motto on your sleeve there: peace, love, junk. That's
Peace, love,
pretty
and
cool.
junk. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. So let's just start, Brian, how about you tell us, what do you see as far as, people buying existing businesses? What are some of the advantages that you see for people?
All right. Well, the largest advantage obviously is going to be that there's existing cash flow. There's an existing customer base. I mean, they're walking into an existing business. So there's existing customers. They know exactly kind of what they're walking into from day one, and what that often can bring. Obviously, from a banking and a financing standpoint, is often when we're selling a business, it's already SBA pre-qualified and SBA pre-approved. So a bank is going to be looking at the business as the primary qualification because they know what cash flow it's going to already be bringing. So a lot of times that carries the advantages of financing for somebody walking in. Also, it's kind of not. It's definitely not set it and forget it, and it's definitely not one of those that you can look at as an investment. We get calls all the time from people saying, "Hey, I want to take my money out of the market and I want to invest in a small business because that's what is really popular right now." And we have to, caution and tell people, no, it's not a passive investment. Any small business is going to be, require work and require activity, in the business, and it's going to have to be something that you're passionate about doing. The life of a small business entrepreneur is something that you have to be passionate about going to work every day and getting your hands dirty and kind of getting into the business. There is no passive investment for a small business that's going to be hands off. I mean, if there was, everybody would do it, right?
Yeah.
So that's the biggest thing is, however, that you get to skip a lot of that ramp up time as far as when you get to start a business where you have to kind of build it, where you kind of get to jump to the head of the line where the business has already been built for you, where the cash flow has been built for you, especially if it's a business that you love. Let's say that you've always wanted a business just like the restaurant down the street, and you want to, if you always had your dream of having a business just like this, and, to do something just like this. And it just so happens that there's a business just like that, where the people are looking to, pass it down to their family, but their family has other plans. They want to be doctors, they want to be accountants, and so they don't want to take it over. But the family has built such a legacy and a brand that they definitely want to carry it on in the community. A situation like that, somebody can come in that's always loved that business and take over from day one. It's already been built. They can carry on that brand, and they can, usually get the financing to pay for that, because the bank also knows the cash flow of that business. They can step in, and generally, we tell people to make the introduction as more of a partner with the owner, and to gradually step away over 6 months to a year, so people don't even realize that, that there's been a transition or that it's been sold. you know so people a year from now are coming in, hey, what happened to Mark, the owner? Oh, he's out fishing. He's just spending less and less time. He's spending more time with his kids. So they don't even realize. If I think if there's a sign that says under new ownership, there's a problem. And that's they probably didn't buy a business that was, running right in the first place, and they probably got that at a discount because they're trying to win back, other customers that left for some reason. If a business was run correctly and you're holding on to that and you're buying into that customer base, it's because the business has been run well, and you're just scaling up, and you're kind of, like I said, jumping to the head of the line, and you're kind of just putting yourself in the CEO, and you're building on what's been built. So the biggest advantage, I would say, is the fact that your customer base is there, that it's a good, well-run business that you can add to, and you can bring more to the table than the current ownership, and that, and the fact that generally there's going to be the financing there to support it, that's based on the business rather than the personal credit. So I'd say that's the
So,
largest advantage.
yeah, I love that. I've never thought about that. Suggesting that somebody comes in and works for 6 months to a year and gradually takes it over. I've always kind of thought doors shut, doors open. So I like that
Oh, no.
strategy
Oh, yeah.
that you just mentioned. Because I know when my husband and I sold our business, it was a matter of, it was a good business. And so, we just told a few friends, and they're like, oh yeah, we're buying that business, right?
Mhm.
And they were the same kind of personality as us, so it was a good fit for them. So
Yeah.
one thing I'm wondering is, how do people do, yes, I see I love Dairy Queen. I mean,
Mhm.
I give me a peanut butter parfait every day and I'd be a happy girl, but happy
Mhm.
and very fat.
Mhm.
And so I would think I might want to buy a Dairy Queen
Mhm.
because I like ice cream. Um, and the peanut butter parfait. How do people do their due diligence in buying an existing business to make sure that it's truly a good fit and truly their passion, right? Because you can be passionate about the food that they have, but maybe not too passionate about the role of the owner.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So that is one thing. When somebody's asking to look at a business, I mean, first they sign. Everything that we do is confidential. That's first and foremost. So nobody knows. They know what type of business it is. They can see some general financials. They'll sign a non-disclosure agreement, and then we have a general interview. So we want to know why they want to buy this type of business, what kind of history, what kind of background that they bring to the table, and really what they're looking for, what kind of lifestyle that they're looking for first and foremost, and whether this business that they're considering is going to bring that, whether they're going to be happy with it, because there's no sense in us even presenting that business if it's not going to meet their desires or adequacies. And we definitely don't want to expose, that business being for sale, or any of the financials or the name of that business, to somebody that it's not going to go anywhere anyway. So in general, that's the first thing that we do, is we try and find out if there's a fit. Because like I said, we get phone calls all the time where somebody is just, hey, I want to buy a business. This one looks interesting. Can you tell me more about it? And we're like,
Yeah.
whoa, whoa, whoa. Tell me more about you, and how much time are you looking to spend in the business? And if they say that they're looking for something fully absentee, that is possible to have an absentee business, but you're going to be looking at something starting at least 750,000 at the very bottom minimum, to $1 million, where you can actually have a general manager. But then you're going to have to still have some leadership skills in order to maintain that general manager. You're still going to have to manage that general manager. It's still not going to be hands off. You're still going to, have to manage people and have management skills, in that capacity. So we still have to have that conversation. But if somebody is looking at, buying a business for $500,000 or less and expecting that they're not going to be in that business, you have to start by managing those expectations. So if you let's say there is a Dairy Queen for sale or a local ice cream shop, for sale, and somebody says, yeah, I'm really interested in looking at an ice cream shop, you first look at their expectations and what they think their general role is going to be, and how much time that the owner is actually spending in there, and how that replacement of that person is going to fit in with their expectations. So it is treated somewhat like a job interview. And then whether them purchasing that business and their idea could fit in with that plan. Let's say that they could hire someone, or they're buying it for maybe their daughter or a family member, and they're looking at the seller's discretionary earnings would actually afford them the opportunity, what they want to actually take out of the business, they would be able to hire somebody and bring somebody for those other positions, as long as, I guess, the math works out and those things could fit. Then we can kind of proceed. But those are kind of the stopping points. So first you have that interview before anybody even finds out the name of the business, before anybody really finds out, going any further. If we do find out, yeah, there could be a fit, something could make sense, that's when we actually would pass on, a little bit more information even after they sign the NDA. But we want to find out, one, that they are a qualified buyer, two, that it actually makes sense. And if it doesn't make sense, we're going to go and look for another type of business that may make more sense for them.
Excellent. So there's a question in the chat. He says, if I have an existing business and would like an investor, what could he do? So would it be wise for him maybe to reach out to a business broker and see if I'm assuming you probably know some people that have said, hey, if you come across something good, let me know. I'm willing to invest, but I don't want to have much to do, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And we do have that too. So we have people that sell, equity stakes in their business, or that they want to stay on in their business, or that they want to have a slow exit and want to take on less. We've also got, partnerships where it's owned by, maybe a 3-person partnership, and maybe 2 people want out, and one
Okay.
person would like to stay on. So, I mean, we could sell equity stakes in a business as well.
All right. So at the end of this presentation, our names and phone numbers and emails will be up, and you can reach out to Brian. So Derek, tell us, I know you told us your story, but I know that you also did look at several different franchises, and there was a moment where you had a hard time picking. So, just tell us a little bit about how did you do your due diligence, and what was finally the turning point in the decision making for you?
Hmm. I don't know about a final turning point. That's hard to say. But as far as due diligence, when it comes to franchises, you get the FTD, right? Where you get to take a look at all the financials, and just general, and they give you top end, bottom end, and median. And then the opportunity for several discovery calls with other owners, and just ask a few questions there. And what's the greatest opportunity and what's wonderful about a franchise system are other owners just willing to share everything. You can ask them any question. And now I'm in that role. I get to have that role, and I get to be a part of that process. And so during my conversations with franchisees for several different businesses, I got a good feel for the individuals, how they'd answer my questions, the amount of time they give me. With junk luggers in particular, it was just how willing everybody was to just talk to me and just give me every little thing and give me their cell phone and just discuss, their financials, what their profitability looks like. And yeah, that was nice about junk luggers, and in general about the franchise system period. You got to, in that FTD, you got to see about any past legal actions between the franchisor and franchisee. At the time, junk luggers didn't have any. I don't know if they do still, none that I'm aware of. So just lots of clarity in that FTD. Learned how to read legal documents. Comes in into play still on a very regular basis, right? I'm good with lawyers now. And so that was it. And I don't know where the actual turning point was. It just fit. It was just like putting on a glove. I'm like, this
Yeah.
fits. You know, Terese, you got it, right? You did good.
Yeah. Well, I think part of it is as you know, and as I was listening to Brian too, you know, culture is everything, right? Anymore. A lot of times when we're working for corporate America, it's not all bad culture. I'm not here to say that, but there's a lot of bad culture out there. And you know, so business ownership isn't just about, you know, that financial freedom that you can have, and um it's not just about flexibility, which, you know, I see with your life, you know, especially when
Mhm.
you first started and taking your little girls to, you know, your BNI meetings and
Yeah.
stuff like that. I mean, uh, you know, and I other things that I've
Yeah.
seen on you know, LinkedIn, but it's also very much about the people you fit with. And so what you're saying is that with, you know, the financials worked out, all those things worked out, but then the last puzzle piece was the culture was the right fit for you, right?
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. And still to this day, you know, we have peer groups within the company, and so I'm on a peer group with 5 other franchise owners, and we meet every 6 months for guys' night for steak dinner, right?
Oh,
And
wow.
so yeah, and on top of that, it's bi-weekly. We talk, meet, talk about struggles, and just, you know, there's lots of owners and business owners locally to connect with, which is great and wonderful. And at the same time, connecting with someone else in your same shoes that happens to be in California or New England or Jerry up north. It's just interesting.
Yeah.
You get to learn a lot about people.
Yeah, I love that too, because FranNet is also a franchise, as you know, and
Mhm.
so that's one of the things I love. We have a peer group. We meet every other week. Same thing, you know, we talk about, you know, our
Yeah.
struggles or our victories, whatever happens to be going on at the moment. So, you know, what would you say is the disadvantage? You know, when you were looking at buying another business, it was not a franchise, and you know, what are some of the disadvantages you would say maybe to buying a franchise?
Some of the disadvantages, you know, I don't know. You know, like I'm paying the franchise fees, I'm paying appointment center fees, I'm paying national branding fees, and at the same time, I get a lot of value out of that. I get a whole lot of value out of that. Like
Okay.
there's our marketing team's great. Our corporate team has continued to improve. They switch out quick now than they ever have. We're under the umbrella of Authority Brands. I think a disadvantage would be is if your corporate team is not performing. If they're not performing and you're in that and you're butting heads a lot over decisions they're making on behalf of the system, or maybe they're making decisions for the big players in the group, right? Because there's LA County and there's NYC, and there's probably franchises out there that really dive into those, you know, $4 million plus operations and give them all the love and attention. And I
Mhm.
haven't gotten that with junk luggers at all, because they see everybody's success as their success too. We're on a road to build a beloved brand, and that's, you know, the common household name, and so we're all pulling in the same direction. Other disadvantages, you know, not everybody's on the same page. There's guys that, you know, you always get complainers in any group, right? So sometimes you get that in our group chats and everything. Um, Let me think. Disadvantages. I'd say when we came on, um, we kind of came on at a time where junk removal as a whole in 2020 was booming. Like that business was booming. And we kind of started off in a lull for us. You can't really predict that though, right? And so you might invest in an idea or, you know, a dream that might be tapering off. It's all about timing. Um, so that could be one too, right?
Mhm.
I would say I was listening to Brian, and I was thinking a lot too, you know, any endeavor you take a part of, right? The the absenteeism. Like if you're looking for an absentee business, I don't know of any business at our scale that you can do it in. 750 on the low end, I think that's super generous. I think that's super generous. You have to be ready to work. And your point about growing your passion, that's something you like. I think any endeavor you take a part of, you have to have a passion for people.
Yeah.
And that's what you're doing, depending on your scale, right? And that was the other thing I thought of, like, what does your success look like? If you want to get a pottery wheel and throw clay and sell your products online, you could be absolutely successful like that. And if you want to scale, you still have to have a passion for people and throwing pottery and growing, right? And then all of a sudden you talk about a storefront, you talk about employees, you're talking about a manager, you talk about marketing, and all of that day to day, lots of interaction with people.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, you said that people call you from, franchise, you're now doing validation.
Yeah.
When they call you, what are they asking you and what are you telling them?
A lot of them are just asking for what my day to day is like. A lot,
Okay.
just what does my day to day life look like? Are the numbers junk luggers providing accurate, right? What's another one I commonly get? How's the corporate team, right? That's a big one. And that's an important one to ask too. Always ask always ask the franchisees how the corporate team is and what direction they're pulling. And if they listen, that's super important. Does corporate listen to you? Do you have a voice? That's important. So that's often what I'm asked. Financials I'm willing to share. Yeah, anything and everything. Those are the most common questions.
So one of the things that I know that happened with junk luggers is that you bought and then they were bought by private equity, correct?
Yeah,
Or
authority brands
yeah,
bought them. Yeah, which is just one of those, like Neighborly or something like that. Yeah.
yeah. So in that, no major changes that way. Then nothing
There were improvements.
improved.
There definitely were. So when I got onto junk luggers, they were doing a heavy ramp phase where Josh Cohen, the founder and original guy who started the business out of the back of his SUV, was still there. Looking back on it, they're ramping up for his payday. they were ramping up for his payday, and which is fine, 100%. You get yours, right? And
Right.
looking back, and so since we transitioned to AB, they got a brand. They kind of entry level, uh, entry level price point for 60 something franchisees, and now they're taking that, instead of just liquidating it off, they're just saying, we're going to invest in your marketing, we're going to invest in your corporate team, and they have brought on some incredible improvements within our system. So
Okay.
yeah.
I love that. So, what I would say, just in listening to you and Brian, is that there has to be a positive attitude and not a negative attitude. I think sometimes when we have people that are always trying to poke holes right into the story, those are probably the trouble franchisees, is my guess, and that and maybe end up not being successful because there's a change made at corporate, and even though it may be for better, some people tend to look at things that we've always done it this way and I don't want to do it
Right.
that way, right?
Yeah.
um
Yeah.
so a person that wants to know about who do they contact if they want to sell their business at the end of again, at the end, Brian's information will be up there. If you are not from Ohio, then there are business brokers. You can reach out to me, and I can find some business brokers for you. You can reach out to Brian, he could find some
Yeah.
business brokers for you, and Score can probably find some business brokers for you. So question for the panel: what does it mean to own a business versus own a job? Great question. Why don't we start with let's start with you, Brian.
Yeah, I mean, so if you're not letting the business own you and you're actually owning the business, you get to create your lifestyle, and you get to be in charge. And it's just like managing your life and managing your schedule. If you can manage your business, then you can manage your life. And that's about putting having the right systems and processes in place, And if you can do that, you can be at your kids' soccer games. You can be there for those important moments in your life, and you don't have somebody telling you that you can't, because you do own the business and you can, own your lifestyle. And that's a big thing. You don't have somebody telling you that you need to clock in at a certain time or that you need to do something on somebody else's schedule. I'd say that's probably the best answer to that question. However, if you're letting your business run you, and you're still, letting your customers, dictate what your business is, rather than you having the right systems and processes in place, then yeah, it kind of ends up looking a lot the same.
A lot the same, yeah. And probably not, and probably not even financially rewarding either that way. Derek, how about you? What's the difference between a W-2 and owning your own business?
Yeah, so flexibility,
Mhm.
obviously, and just like Brian said, I think for me, from my perspective, you always be asking yourself, what does your success look like? What's your end goal every day? Just what am I driving towards? And for me, it's quality family time, healthy kids, healthy lifestyle, mentally balanced, right? And that's easier said than done. That's easier said than done, and just always working towards that. Now, I understand there's some people, like my wife's a speech therapist. She gets a lot of latitude in her job, um, but there's a lot of uncertainty there too, right? At certain times, right? She's seen. So I would say, even looking back to whenever I was doing pipeline, I had a lot of latitude as well. I was an expert in my field, and you're giving that, but you're still chained to that phone. If somebody calls and says you have to show up, then you have to show up. Whereas with the business, if a customer calls us on Sunday and says you have to show up today if you want my business, and then you can very firmly and politely say, I'd love to be able to do that, and I can't today. My crew's off. I'm off. This is family time. Happily schedule you for tomorrow. Even though our schedule's full, we'll try and fit you in, and just finding success there. Just, always, what does success look like for you? Keep working towards it.
Yeah, I love that. I know I recently had a client talk to you, and that was one of the things that he said, about you is that Brian has a business where I'm not Brian, Derek has a business where it's all about family, and it's not that you're not earning enough money. You're earning what you want to earn, and you could earn more if you wanted, but you have said, this is success for me right now. My family is top priority. And I love that. And for somebody else, it's dollar signs, if that's what you want to chase. For some other people, it's even health, right?
Mhm.
And like you said, I took most of February off. I took my
Good for
dad
you.
on vacation in February, and I had a special project I wanted to work on, and I had some cataract surgery. So, I just kind of said, all right, this is going to be the month of Terese. I'm going to take care of
Yeah.
Terese this month. And but I couldn't do that if I worked for corporate. And I think even more than flexibility, one of the things that I like to try to point out to people is that there is no job security anymore.
Mhm.
Brian, I mean, how many times did you say you were downsized?
Mhm.
Derek was downsized. And I'm part of quite a few job search groups here in the Cleveland area. And, people aren't downsized once or twice. I mean, we're looking now at, you're looking for a new opportunity probably about every 3 to 5 years. And for some people, that opportunity is taking a year to find. And if you were making $150,000 a year, there's 150 gone. So what are you willing to invest in income security? Really, having something at the end of the day, to answer your question, the other thing is to have something at the end of the day to sell. Brian is helping people that have spent their time building up a baby and building up a nest egg, and Derek is doing that right now. He's building a business, and at some point in time he's probably going to sell it. I can't imagine that his girls will want to take it over, maybe his brother,
Maybe.
but nonetheless, So that's another thing is that, you know, you are building up something that's of value to sell at the end of the day, and a job doesn't offer you that anymore.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So when you're helping people, Brian, with culture, you know,
Mhm.
do you find sometimes that that's an issue, that people don't fit into that culture of an existing business?
Oh yeah, for sure. And that's I mean that's one of the biggest determining factors. I mean, if they're going to be walking into an existing business and it's not the right fit for them. And it's so then you can try and steer them into something that maybe,
Yeah,
maybe the right fit. Um, but it doesn't make sense to really even introduce them to a business that is not going to work. And that's the other thing. I mean, it really is trying to match up the business owners. There's got to be a relationship.
yeah,
Obviously, even through their due diligence phase, they have to work together. There's always a transition period. So you're really it is a matchmaking more than anything at this point, because there has to
good.
be that torch that's being handed off, and they have to like each other. I sold a restaurant in in Kent to somebody from San Francisco, actually. And he was like, okay, one, I don't want you to talk to anybody that serves this kind of food in this area. So I don't want them coming from this state or this area, and I don't want you talking to any of these people. It has to be somebody that my wife and my husband, or sorry, that my wife and I are going to get along with, and we're very, very particular. It has to be somebody that's young and energetic, and we're very hard to get along with, and it's got to be somebody that honors our family recipes, and it's got to be somebody that has a history in the restaurant industry, and is going to see the passion for what we do. And the only place that we found them was in San Francisco.
Wow.
And so yeah, so we found somebody from San Francisco that was working for somebody else in a similar restaurant out there, who was a restaurant manager there, and his wife worked in purchasing. And we flew them in. They did a site tour. We introduced the two of them. They got along, and yeah, it ended up working out. And they worked, with each other for, about 6 weeks as far as the transition. It was a good transition. Um, so it's very important that both the sellers are able to give us a clear definition of what they're looking for a buyer, so we know exactly who we can introduce them to as well.
Okay.
And that is something that we look for when we're talking to the buyers, so we know who we can introduce them to and who we can kind of bring to the table as well as a potential prospect. Because that again, they're looking for somebody to carry on that legacy, and we're looking for somebody that's going to be a right fit for the position. So we really are kind of in that HR position almost, as far as
Yeah.
interviewing people for, the right fit for the job. And there are really so many businesses out there. We're connected to over 300 Transworld offices, even at the Canton office. So there's even, especially if somebody's looking and they're not tied down to this area and they're looking for something, somewhere in the country, we can find maybe that perfect fit for them, even if it's, not in this area, if they're willing to kind of look outside this area. That's something else, just to find that perfect cultural, fit and kind of make that match. I sold a business um, in Florida, actually, to somebody that was in wood restoration. It was a single person operator. And it took 7 or 8 months, but we had to find just the exact person that was artistic enough
Yeah.
to want to paint those little intricate little lines in order to do like the wood finishes when doors get dinged and things like that. So yeah, you really are looking for kind of, yeah, the right match for people. So when people are looking for a business, we really kind of want to know what makes them tick, what they're really looking for, and then match them to the business just as well as, looking for the business to match to the person. So that, yeah, the culture and the person, the individual personalities is honestly probably more important than the dollars in most cases. We've had a number of sellers say, you can bring us piles of money, you can bring us, whatever you want, but if the person is not going to be the right fit, don't even have them talk to us, because that's not as important. The payday is not as important as their legacy and keeping the business going.
Yes, I love that. I love, and I've heard that, and that's why sometimes businesses go to ESOPs, right?
Mhm.
Um, So Brian, so I would just want to say that Derek definitely has a hard stop at noon, and you
Okay.
know, we can carry on with Brian, but I think you're a good person to answer this question, Derek, is how can you build a business where ultimately the owner or owners do not have to basically include themselves in the sale of the business? I don't know, that might be a question for Brian. And also, how do we evaluate if a business that is for sale can't survive with or without the owners? Um, well, you know, first, Derek, why don't you talk about how do you scale a business so that it doesn't need you every day?
Start from the beginning. Start from the beginning. Invest in that leadership. I've invested in my leadership, and just try to remove yourself as often as possible from each process. Build up processes and rules. You know, if then scenarios that can be easily followed by somebody else. Or even with a little bit of training. So if you have processes in place, if you have good SOPs, good sales processes in place, that are there, ready to go, and can scale, and has a history to it, you're off to the races. You're off to the races. I think I see Brian nodding. I'm hoping I'm saying the right thing. This is just my
You are.
perspective.
Yep.
I've only
Yep.
all right, because you know
Absolutely.
I'm always thinking about it. I'm always thinking about it. How can I hand this off to where somebody says, "Ooh, this looks good. This looks juicy," and it's just got to be. It's just got to. You know, whenever I was looking to buy that one business, I asked for 3 years of P&Ls, and I just got boxes and boxes, you know, and I was just like, oh man, who wants to go through that process, you know? And then
Yeah.
I have to pay the accountant to go through it instead of
Mm.
just like, man, it was at the time it's 2022, let's do this. And so if you're building with that mentality of one day this is going to be sold again,
Mhm.
have your goal in place. What does success look like for you, and just build towards that. um, if it's your own business, you know, processes can be harder to come across, but there are oodles of it's never been easier to be successful and to be able to scale and to be able to just hand it off. So I would say if you're looking to buy something, you know, ask them about the processes, and then see how involved they are in the day to day. How touchy are they? Are they micromanagers? Are they leaders? You know, what does their Monday morning meeting look like? Sunday morning, what do those meetings look like? Are they just talking about um, this didn't go right, this didn't go right, this didn't go right, or are they talking about this is our why? You know, what's the conversation being had? Um, I hope that answers or helps. I'm sure Brian could definitely offer more insight there.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you, what would be, you know, what's a couple things that you wished you had done differently, started differently or whatever?
Easy. Spend more on marketing. Right?
Really?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. If you want to scale hard, if you want your name out there, you have to spend money. That's kind of what it comes down to. I could have also been better about my business development practices then too, from the get-go. Pipelines take a long time to fill, especially large-scale commercial stuff, which is, you know, where we're looking to build in and finally start some success in. But I wish I would have started, you know, seeing that a little bit earlier. So that's mine personally.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. If you have any other questions that you would like Derek to specifically answer, then please, you know, get them in there now before he has to jump off. So, Brian, one of the things, and maybe I'm wrong about this, but you know, when I talk to business owners that are thinking about selling or that they're going to want to sell, is that, you know, I tell them, you know, you need to give yourself 3 to 5 years, you know, running start, right? To hook up with somebody like yourself, so that your books are in line, you know, all of those things. So what, you know, to the question that was asked here, about, you know, making sure that someone isn't the all-in owner and all of those
Yeah.
things, how would you answer that question?
Yeah, that would be nice, but we rarely run across that. I mean,
Oh,
generally, yeah, unfortunately, yeah, usually by the time somebody's calling us, and we can advise that, but they generally give us a 1 year time frame. Even with things, because that's the nature. They look at their last year's tax return and they're like, oh, okay, now it's time to sell our business. And then, you know, we're kind of looking at things and saying, okay, here's what we can do now, and here's what the previous market, and, you know, kind of going over things from there. But you're absolutely right, Derek, with what you were saying. what makes a business attractive and what's going to get you that higher multiple is going to be that owner dependency, because somebody wants to walk in a business that is going to be easier for them to manage. So that management for somebody walking in is what makes a business attractive, because everybody's going to be asking, what am I going to be able to do, especially if I don't have experience in this business? And if the business is kind of running on its own and they have to do less, it's going to be worth paying for that, right? So they're going to pay a higher multiple for that. That and cash flow. So a business that has a higher SDE, or seller's discretionary earnings, that's throwing off more cash flow, is a lot more impressive than somebody that invest in their business by buying more stuff every year to lower their taxes. So we see businesses all the time where they say, I've got more stuff. I've got more stuff. Look at all the things that come with my business. And unfortunately, those businesses sell for a much lower multiple, even though they have more stuff and equipment. Because what makes a business more attractive is somebody's looking at that cash flow. They're looking at the discretionary earnings and saying, okay, if I step into this business, how much time is it going to take away from my family? And how much of this money am I going to be able to use to scale, to, to further have more market penetration, to invest in the transition, and to look at, the culture and the management and things like that, to take this business beyond where the current, status quo is. As we've been talking about, kind of the different avenues and everything, I wrote down really, I guess, some considerations. I think if somebody is to consider the different, avenues and what makes everything a little bit different, is somebody needs to consider, I guess, what they're investing in and the scale, right? So how much money they're putting in and how they're going to scale, the market penetration, what that looks like, considering, obviously having an existing customer base or having to build that, what the transition is going to look like, and what the brand and the culture of what they're buying, looks like. And you kind of, compare those, and the investment involved, I think, kind of points out the differences in those, whether they need to really kind of ramp up, and invest more into marketing to build that business, whether that's a new business or a franchise, or what the current business has as far as cash flow and what they can contribute, to that from an existing standpoint. I don't know if that, if I
Yeah.
took that.
No, so the other question that's there is, how do you make sure that somebody isn't the owner isn't the driving business, that once the owner leaves,
Yeah.
the business might dry up?
Oh, that is a great question. And particularly because we do have a lot of business. I mentioned the woodworker in Florida, right? It is a business where there was only one person working, and he fixed doors, he fixed doors and nicks and things like that. And it was a one person operate, great business. And he had a very carved out, niche and and a kind of a name for himself. Um, However, he was the driving force in the name, so he had the brand, the brand name behind it. So in those cases, you need to make sure that there is going to be a longer transition time. Dentist, for instance, I've got a psychology practice in Canton that's for sale right now. That's a one person practice. So obviously, in that case, especially if it's a named like dental office or mental health facility, a lot of times these doctors' offices are named after the practicing doctor. You can't just buy that practice with that customer base and then come in and saying, I'm going to, handle their patients now, without that person staying on and having a longer, transition time. Because regardless, those patients are going to say, wait a minute, I've been seeing Dr. So-and-so, who are you? I may as well look and see about, what going to another doctor if that was handled suddenly. So what we do in those cases where it is a one person operation, or that it's a doctor's practice, especially a named practice, is that we make sure that there's a longer transition time that's kind of built in, that there's a longer handoff, so that somebody's willing to stay on for a longer period of time, almost like an apprentice, kind of situation, that they would be actually working with that person for a longer period of time to make those introductions. So it's a smoother kind of a passing of the baton. The other thing that one really should be doing in those situations is get an assistant, get somebody to start working with you when you realize that. So the more you can do to start stepping away the earlier you can is, even if it does spend some of that, discretionary earnings, it is worth it because it will have less dependency and somebody can see that the whole business is not going to be on their shoulders from day one, which is going to make the business more attractive. Even if, like I said, even if the discretionary earnings go down, it won't put all the pressure on the business because that does look risky to somebody buying a business.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. Yeah, I would be afraid if I just walked into a dentist office and, oh, Dr. Miller
well,
isn't here anymore. I have Dr. Jones, and I'd be like, I don't know
exactly.
about
But
Dr.
yeah, but
Jones.
if Dr. Miller was there and said, "Hey, Dr. Jones is now working with me. They're a great doctor. They'll be taking care of you." And then your next two visit, you went with Dr. Jones, and then Dr. Miller just didn't happen to be there on your third visit. It would be more comfortable.
Yeah, 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 that makes sense. Good. So we haven't talked a whole lot about starting from scratch. And you did that with your business. What are some lessons learned there?
Oh, there's a lot of lessons learned, but you learn them the hard way.
Yeah.
Um,
So, well, I think one of the things is a lot of people think starting a business from scratch is less expensive than buying an existing business and less expensive than buying a franchise. Um, and so could you tell us why or why not that's true?
Yeah, so you mentioned the and that's why I mentioned kind of, you need to consider the scale and the scalability of all three of these options because you do, with each level of investment, I think you do get a kind of a kick in the scalability of the business. If you're starting from scratch, you're literally starting from zero. You're starting with you, and then you're
Right.
starting with your family members, and you're starting with your friends. And so kind of look at what that means for the cash flow that you're going to be bringing in and realize that's kind of that's your uphill. If you're buying into a franchise, you're buying into a customer base still. There is a footprint, there is a brand, there is a customer base there that you're tapping into. And if you're buying an existing business, you know exactly what that customer base looks like as well. So it is, when you're starting a business, it's just you on an island looking for customers to build your business with, by the handful, literally.
Yeah. What would you say is the difference between you starting your own business and being part of Transworld? And what I mean by that is, yes, when you're in Transworld, when you're buying a junk luggers or a
Hmm.
franchise, oh my
Hmm.
gosh, and you have you have business people that are in business for themselves but not by themselves, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But when you're starting from scratch, you are more on an island than you
Hmm.
are. So what are the just being the advantages of that, of having that franchise system, that franchise family? I've always felt the franchise family has
Yeah.
uh, been important.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you do. You've got a marketing department behind you. You've got a legal department behind you. You've got the corporate backing of a large company, a large corporation behind you. So yeah, you're not on an island anymore. You've got a large structure and you've got the customer base.
Hmm.
So you've got that brand behind you. And honestly, I would say in general, you want to look at the brand strength of any franchise and what that's going to bring to the table, not necessarily today, but down the line in the building of that brand and what the value of that brand is going to bring. I mean, at one point, McDonald's wasn't known,
Hmm.
either. And then look at what that brand value, became, over
Yeah.
over time as well. So you want to look at not only the brand value today, but what it's going to mean in the future, because if you buy into a franchise, those customers, those future customers, are going to be yours as well. Um, I bought into the Transworld franchise as I mentioned before because it's connected to 300 other offices, across the country. So immediately, I had hundreds of thousands of listings that I could work with. And I would never be able to have all those listings available to me, to work without that. Again, I'd be, looking for, one by one and building that credibility and having that credibility behind of having all those experts and people to lean on is I think it's a strength of a franchise to consider as well.
All right. So we have a question here. We just started a new business, but we already have the customers.
Hmm.
And joining as a partner that will be on an ongoing partner, do you set up a separate entity for financial purposes? And organization is key for me right now. How do I know if I have all the right licenses or permits?
Yeah, I would talk to your accountant and
Yeah.
your probably an attorney about the structure of your business.
Yeah,
Because that's structurally you need to make sure you're following the guidelines of how you're going to be filing your taxes. And that's going to be there's specific guidelines and rules for partnerships, LLCs, and corporations that you need to make sure that you're following.
And as far as the permits and as far as the permits and licenses, those really vary state by state. They can
Mhm.
actually sometimes even vary maybe by county. So
Mhm.
you should probably just start out, reaching out to an attorney to find out, what are the rules and regulations for your area.
Mhm. Yeah, and that will change, obviously as you grow, and you may change obviously structures and how and how you're going to be filing and the structure of your business as you bring on partners and things like that. But yeah, you want to make sure that you have a competent legal attorney and an accountant that's working on top of those things as you scale.
Yeah, and no matter what business, you need to have,
Yeah, absolutely.
if you're looking at a franchise, you want to make sure that you're looking at a franchise attorney, because there are some things people say that there are things that can't be negotiated on an agreement. You can never negotiate a royalty, and you can never negotiate the franchise fee, but there are a few things that can be negotiated, and a franchise attorney knows that, and a regular business um, attorney does not. And you always want to make sure that you're aligning yourself with a great CPA or
Mhm.
tax accountant. And you want to make sure too that you're aligning yourself with a great banker that's going to understand your why for what you're doing and be supportive of you. Um, and are there other questions? I don't know. Is there anything you would like to add, Brian, that I didn't ask?
Not that I can think of. I'm sure we'll think of things after, but
Yeah. So how it happens.
yeah.
Please, if you have other questions, now is the time. I don't really have anything else, but I'm happy to have people ask a few more questions. Um, so ask now someone asked about your list. You don't, much like FranNet, we don't, and I'm sure you don't, just go, okay, well, here's my list of businesses. Because one, most of the businesses, you're not going to name. Most of the business owners don't want their employees to know that they're selling right now.
Yeah, so there is a listing.
Is
If you
there?
go to transworld.com and you can search for the Canton office. Yeah, just go, or it's not transworld.com, it's tworld.com.
Okay.
So if you go to tworld.com and look for the Canton, there is a list of our public listings. Now they're not going to say the name of the business. Also, Biz by Sell, also we list on, we list on a number of different sites, but all the information is going to be confidential about what the business is. If you are interested, then we will ask you to sign a non-disclosure. Then we will talk to you about, what you're looking for, in a business to find out if it's going to be the right fit. Now, I will say, if you do look at, any of the listing sites and you see, a business that's of interest to you, yeah, you can contact me. For Transworld at Canton or any of our brokers here, and we can find out if it's a fit, and we can work with any especially any Transworld broker or Transworld office, and see if we can match you up or work to see if it might be a fit for you.
Chuck, I don't know. Can you come off mute for a second? I'm not sure that I understand the question. You were referring to the punch list you started during Brian's talk. So can he come off, John, and explain his question, because I don't understand it.
Yeah, I think Gwen has to unlock his ability to be able to chime in. So I don't know whether Gwen's listening or not.
Well,
I am. I'm looking for Chuck here.
okay, yeah, it's Chuck Norris.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah. All righty. You've been unmuted.
Okay, Chuck, you want to ask a question? There you go.
Okay, great. I'm sorry. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thanks so much. I was sorry. Brian was talking and he was sort of sharing a list basically, but if I'm going to get a recording, I can get it from there. Yeah, I think you were talking about a business, kind of things you would look for almost in a due diligence sort of a stage. So not your listing of your businesses. I didn't realize you were local though. We will reach out. But it just seemed to be kind of here's a good checklist for you more so.
Oh, I see. Oh, if you're selling a business, what to make sure?
Yeah, well, we're actually in the process of purchasing one, and so
Oh.
we thought that would really be of some help to us in terms of due diligence.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. You really should have a due diligence list, ready to hand over, especially in the due diligence phase, to make sure that, yeah, if you reach out, we can get you something to help you out there.
Okay, thanks so much.
Yeah, again, Brian, this is John. Just to make sure we're covering the base, I think he was looking for a due diligence to go purchase.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I
Okay.
think too, well, fortunately, Brian is a SCORE member also, or not member, is SCORE mentor. And
Yeah.
and so, in some of these cases, when you are looking to buy a business, whether it's a franchise or start your own existing business, or you're buying an existing business,
that's a
I
good point.
strongly encourage you to reach out to SCORE. And they have all of those kinds of things also for you. They're
That's a great
also
point.
there to help you build a business, projections and all of those things. They're a wonderful, wonderful resource. They don't charge for any of their services either.
Yeah.
And if they can't help you for some reason, they will find someone that can help you. So I couldn't recommend SCORE more as a resource. So please
Yeah.
make sure that you reach out to them. And fortunately, as I mentioned, Brian is a SCORE mentor also. So I think that no matter what adventure you are looking at going into, you need to make sure that you do your due diligence. Sometimes, what would you say is your investment amount, average investment amount for a business? All in loan and cash and all of that, Brian.
Were you asking Chuck?
No, for someone buying a business. I mean, I know it's all over the board, but what would you say is an average investment for an existing business?
That we're seeing?
Yeah.
Yeah. So in general, we usually see 750 to 1.5 million is kind of our, I guess our sweet spot for where things go the smoothest. But I mean, we've sold businesses for 50,000.
Yeah.
We've especially lately we've seen a lot, kind of in the 50,000 to 125,000. But it really it can be anywhere from that, that 50,000 to that 1.5 million. We generally work on those Main Street businesses, so it's going to be, in general under that 1.5 million.
Okay, perfect.
Mhm.
And what would you say is the climate right now too, with, as you mentioned at the beginning, that a lot of people are selling their existing businesses, and I saw a statistic, I don't know how true it is, but that 80% of the businesses that are out there for sale probably won't sell. The
Yeah.
20% of them do sell. And what is the reason for that?
Well, I don't want to say they're not sellable, but it is because the business owners are not really, they're not thinking about selling them. To be honest with you, they're either thinking about passing them down or they're just thinking about closing them. And people have the freedom to do, what they will.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. So, and a lot of those cases, they're using their seller's discretionary earnings to buy lifestyle items and to put back into their life. And that is one thing that I will say, especially if people are running their business as a cash business and they're taking a lot of money out of their business. If you're looking at your business as a retirement plan and you take money out of your retirement plan every year and you don't report that or you take that out as cash, you don't get the multiple, just
Yeah.
like you want it on a 401k. And people, a lot of times when we share that with them, that you don't get the multiplication, you don't get the multiplier effect when you don't have that to report in the end. Yeah, it does hinder the effect and the business's value in the end. And I think that accounts for the majority of that 20%. So a lot of it is people just deciding not to sell. People are holding on to businesses longer. And then in the end, there is, I don't want to say there's an unrealistic expectation, but sometimes people just feel like it's their business is worth based on revenue rather than the cash flow of the business. And that's where, like I said, they oftentimes will just spend the money at the end of the year on stuff. And when somebody's looking to buy the business, they're not looking to buy stuff. They're looking to buy cash flow. And they're looking to buy a lifestyle. And if you don't have cash flow or the lifestyle, that's what makes the business hard to sell.
Yeah. Well, so, I just encourage you, whether it's a franchise business or it's buying an existing business or starting from scratch, I think you should reach out to SCORE. They are happy to go over all of those or refer you to me or refer you to Brian. Neither one of us charge anything for our services. We really work, like a realtor or a headhunter. So, we really care about both of our clients. I care about, people like Derek. It makes me happy to see my clients be successful. It makes you happy to see your clients on both ends be successful. And you never know what's on either side of the other opportunities until you take a few minutes and explore. So I also would say that I encourage people to look at both opportunities both ways, because you just don't know what's out there, especially in the franchise world. There's so many wonderful franchises out there. I always make my clients look at least 3 to 4 different opportunities in different industries, because it teaches you questions to ask. Sometimes you didn't realize that something was available that, oh, really, I could have a business and not have to work on a Saturday, or different things like that. So it's important to just learn all about business ownership rather than just jumping right in and doing it. So we thank you very much for attending. Here's our phone numbers. Feel free to reach out to us. Please reach out to SCORE. We thank you very much, SCORE, for giving us this opportunity to educate people about business ownership. So thank you.
Okay. All right. Yep.
Yeah.
Thanks again.
Yeah, Terese and Brian, really appreciate you guys taking time out of your busy days to lead this workshop for Canton SCORE. So thank you very much.
Thank
So
you. Have a great day.
with that, we'll conclude the webinar. Thank you to everyone for attending. Have a great afternoon.
Have a great day.